Tonight I'm turning to the first book of Corinthians chapter 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 11. We'll continue our studies in this book. Last week we considered verse 3 of this chapter. And as actually I wanted to look at up to verse 10, but only verse 3 took all our time. So we continue this evening. But in verse 3, just to remind ourselves, Apostle Paul spoke about the headship in relation to the man and woman, Christ and mankind. And again, for the man and woman, say we are looking at it in context of marriage and also in the church. Well, that is how it ought to be for the world, but the world doesn't obey the commands of God, though they have a sense of it in the world, but they don't. But for the Church of Jesus Christ, the order of God is respected. What is His church? That upholds all His laws. So we think, when we are thinking of man and woman, it is in the context of the husband and wife, and also the church, women and men and women in the church. So, and also the headship of Christ and all mankind, and also and God and Christ. And as I remember, we said that unlike Christ's headship over mankind, which is by proprietorship, by ownership, man's headship over the woman is according to God's arrangement for this present life, which is by order of creation. And also God's headship over Christ, according to God's redemptive plan, as the Father, Son, and the Spirit have equal status as God. They all have the nature as God, and that they are three persons in one God. They are equal. They all have the same attributes. Yet, as we know, we don't have three gods. So that Christ's salvation to the Father has to do with His work for us as a mediator, where He submitted Himself to take human nature, which verse we look at in Philippians chapter 2. Then you made the 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Now last week in the verse 3. Now, I hear verse 10 up to verse 10, but into me. Now, verse 3, no, you better carry. Now, Apostle Paul, or can't miss him. Christ did nipenya also, na miss him, Bema, Sudi, or Basso. Now, make us say, if Bema di or Basso, now, say, if you know, our Christopher, our room, and also a sorry, miss him, and she share and put Christo, the actual man, sorry. Said the Bema di Obaso, a uncle punch or dema or a body no, or ball, or Bama no ban, or she share, but Miss Me and we are say, inform who say, Yankopon, I should be an as a bibisa. Though, who said Nipa, a bimu, a fool say, right, but no biana, a fool say, but as Christopher, Yankopon, the year, Yankopon. Nimra any mesman hyehyɛ sɛ no na ebedi so nti sɛ yɛka ɔba bɛn ɔbɛma di ɔba so a merebre ne yɛhwɛ Kristofoɔ sɛ okunu ne ɔyere na also asɔre adwuma no bɛma ne mba ne mesman hyehyɛ a Kristo di ato hɔ ama yɛn. And it also ɛhwɛ sɛ Bible no ka sɛ Nyankopɔn ne di Kristo so. Na yehu sɛ yɛhwɛ sɛ Kristo mesmo di nipa nyia so no te sɛ obi a te sɛ deɛ bibia ne deɛ ɔno ɔyɛ ɔbɔ adeɛ ɛnte sɛ mesmo nipa di bɛma di ɔba so no fi sɛ bɛma mesmo di ɔba so Nyankopɔn ne hyɛ na ɔde ahyehyɛ ɛwɔ saa ewiase a ɛwɔ mu mesmo ɔbɔ ewiase no sɛ bɛma di ɔba so, but Yesu Kristo deɛ ne deɛ ɔno ɔyɛ ɔbɔ adeɛ Yankopɔn nti ɛnyɛ sɛ de ɛkwan pɛpɛpɛ mesma Kristo di nipa so saa na bɛma nso di ɔbaa so nso yɛ wɔ mu ɛna ɛsan nso hwɛ sɛ Yankopɔn mesma odi Kristo so na yɛhwɛ wɔ ha no ɛno nso hyɛ mesma Yankopɔn no hyehyɛ yɛ sɛ ɔbɛgye nipa fi bɔne mu no saa nhyehyɛ mu no Kristo Yankopɔn ba no ɔba ɔno ade no ho si wo so ba be hye ba be fa nipa su mu aye te se akoa na wotumi awie sa dwuma no de ama but ye hwe se Kristo se de Yankopɔn ba no de oni agya no ne omkonkon no nyia no omo ye baako se de ka se Yankopɔn baako a enipa miensa ewo ni mu no how to say the tree is like Yankopɔn baako a osanso eye agya oba ene omkonkon no enso ye ni Yankopɔn miensa Yankopɔn baako na omo nyia o Yankopɔn ni su Yankopɔn ye baako enso ehunu se agya oba ne su omkonkon no omo na gina ho ma Yankopɔn. So tonight we'll continue from verse 4. Yes, last week. And so the same subject, orderliness and modesty. So there, parent there, shishaya, shepa, and it mesima, yahufamuno, yabema aye aso iradieni. So I'll read from verse 4 to add verse 4 to 5. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. For that is even all one as if she were shaven. Now, as I said last week, Apostle Paul began the first 3 verses. I think even verse 2, verse 3. The topic he touched on is to lay the foundation of what he's going to say in these verses, because he was going to touch on this issue, which has to do with subordination of the woman to the man, and how it ought to be maintained in the church. And as I said, also it will be in the family. But here he has to do it in the context of the church's meeting for worship. So every man praying or prophesying, he has to do with Christian men who joined the public worship at the church at Corinth. And let's also put in our mind, Apostle Paul was dealing with a peculiar issue, which was particularly at Corinth. And because his instructions here, we draw principle applications from it for our Christian life, but some of the instructions are not general biblical instructions laid down for all churches, as we will see when we come to the end. So here we will limit to the Corinthian church in that context. Every man praying or prophesying. The praying prophesying here has to do not necessarily that probably the man is prophet as foretelling, which is we say the future things and all that. And the praying and prophesying here, it has to do with every man who joins with the public worship, and everyone who joins will partake in the prayer, as well as the singing forth of the praises to the Lord. And the singing forth is a way of part of prophesying, which has to foretelling, singing forth the praises of God. And so the prophesying has to be taken as foretelling, not foretelling, in that sense, as Apostle Paul places it. So it's in the context of public worship, and he says that every man praying or prophesying. The can is Apostle Paul, verse 3 no in church no church near 3 any say Jesus Christ ye nipa nyati na be man ye oba ni ti no de extremes mo so oba no hye be ma ase no fapi mo original so dia be kire nyoma efa said the oba also to me enya hobrase de mo be ma husband ware mu na yehwe ha se de asori ejuma mu asori mesima asori nhihye etie no and the oshase no say be ma bia bompa ya na say o ka nsem adiam afewrade ho and say yes or share prophesying no directly best or share and combat your part of prophesying in come share it is all can in some of the home to be fun say all to nyum or can a union or to be was sorry so bomb pinas all to a union I was sorry into your fun so bema waba a sorry crystal Christopher asori shiabia no obeka say yes sorry Ewurade no sa nipa no be man no kan ho asem. So here it has to be referred to foretelling, not foretelling as prophecy. We may prophecy may sometimes mean telling of future event. And again, Apostle Paul was not speaking to only pastors and teachers, because in the churches, pastors and teachers were supposed to. In the early church, it was there were prophets in the early church, and most of the prophets would be pastor teachers of the church, and they had that gift of prophecy where they foretell the things the Lord give them for the church. But here it has to do with every man, not only the leaders of the church. He's talking to all men who come to the public worship. The American say, "You share a sorry no, sa emre no na apostles no ho ne ade no na Bible ne ntwo wie no na omo a church nyamesem no say bi asofo ana say a church of no omo sa a chede so omo be yakopɔ be mo nneoma obeyi obeda ne dia mo metumi obeda ne dia mo metumi a kira sorry no nti na ebi mu tesa. But Apostle Paul nye omo a kire omo ye akomhyefo asori mu e wo sambre no ka asemo yi ade mo say o asem no e ho ma bema bia oba asori no enhia mu say omo ye asori, not only the pastors and teachers of the church but the entire congregation, the male Christians in the congregation. So every man praying or prophesying has to refers to every male that joins the congregation. He was not talking to maybe the prophet of the church or the pastor teachers of the church. And it says every man praying or prophesying having his head covered dishonored his head. What we know that veiling, women covering their head, was not an accepted dressing style for men at Corinth. At Corinth, and in all the in those days, in the those countries or nations that were Greeks, the Greeks, and Corinth was one of the nations which were Greeks. It was the dressing style for women to put on covering or head covering, or they call veil, to veil themselves when they come into public. And so, it wasn't just for fashion. It had a moral implication, because veiling depicted woman's subordination to man. It shows woman's subordination to man, and also the kind of modesty which a woman has to appear in public. Apostle Paul said, "Bema be eba sorry share anymore." So now so the kataso kasa ntiso a eye enimguase e de ma no na make us at Corinth samre no any Greek nkro bebre no say bema de entuma be kata na tiso no enyem bema ahofade eyemba ahofade nti say bema efasa ahofade no a enimguase na Apostle Paul kada na so ba beka ode akata so beka taniti no na ejina ho ma mesima na ho o se onya ho brase de ma ne kunu ana se oba mbema mu a o so yo bi a ohwe so onya ho owa ho brase enti se bema efa sa akata so ne kata taniti so a na so peso oba te se oba na ohwe so yo oba enti na as oguni ho ni mase as a bema or dress it so ba bema wa fa no ho se oyo oba and or says a bema be, but actually he was talking about, he wanted to speak about women's subordination, but then he has to speak above, so that if a man put on to appear like a woman, it's a dishonor, and again if a woman also put away that which show her as a woman, it's also dishonor. So that is the two things he was trying to bring across. So for a Christian to attend a church at Corinth with a covered head, a Christian man implies that he wants to appear like a woman. I'm sure when a man puts a woman dress, I mean, we see that no, it's a dishonor. So that's what Apostle Paul is trying to say. So bema be fan ho se oba aba asori hia mu no eyenimguase enya de a eso eni. And Nana make us Apostle Paul, and yet, the man again and now, or person, but or chess, Miss my ancestor or barber to the chess or your bargain. Sounds a bear man, a fat dear or bad dear, now offer I in Guassier. So, for a Christian man to attend the church at Corinth, he has to appear as a man and not as a woman. And we know that though the Greek culture has that where women have to veil their hair when they come to public, yet in many cultures that was not the accepted norm. And because some cultures accepted men to wear head covering when they come to public. For instance, under the Old Testament, it was a law for the priest to wear head covering while they were serving in the house of God. Aaron and all the priests, they was to wear something was like a head covering when they come to the house of God. Let me read to you Exodus chapter 28, verse 4. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate and an ephod and a robe and a broidered coat, a myrtle. A myrtle here is a turban, like a head covering for Aaron, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garment for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest office. And again, verse 40. And for Aaron's sons thou shalt make coats. Thou shalt make for them girdles and bonnets. Bonnet is also head caps. Bonnet here also has their head caps, and shall make for them for glory and for beauty. So look at how it was described. This dressing with the head cap was for glory and for beauty. So in the Old Testament, the priests have to wear head covering when they work in the house of God. And so if Apostle Paul, what he's saying is, a man wearing a veil is a dishonor. So you should tell that he's not touching on a general thing for Christians, because even in the Jewish culture, which he himself, he was one, the priests in the Old Testament and wear head covering, and it was for beauty, for glory when they serve the Lord. And so what he's saying against men wearing head covering which dishonored their head, it's not a general thing. That he's not saying that men shouldn't wear head covering when they come to church. I'll say more after on this thing when we go on, because not only the Jews, even in their synagogues at the time, even when Apostle Paul, they wear head coverings when they go to worship. The Jewish synagogues, up to today, they still do it. Jewish men put on head coverings and to show themselves as religious people. They have all sorts of, some are caps, I think some churches have been copying from them. They go and they sell some kind of head covering where they say when you are praying, you put it on. It makes you more spiritual. That's where they pick it. It's the Jewish culture, the men put on head covering when they are praying. Sometimes if you see some of these pictures, the Wailing Wall, they put a head covering when they are praying. So I'm saying this for us to see that Apostle Paul is not talking about men not to put head covering. That was not the case he's dealing with. But he's dealing with where head covering at Corinth was morally accepted, as it shows the subordination of women to men, as it depicts femininity and all that. So that's what he's trying to say. Now the Americans, Apostle Paul, the Okanta, yes, or patches a man, Beman fat be being catalytic so bad as already more. If you say, Titano, Israel from Reno, a soft one, I know more you want your Sophia. Omanta de Crown, I am quite shame, Rasa and Famono, not a chair. Bibi a demo my say chow mushe. You see, I didn't cook one shamom. And I'm say, import Apostle Paul no a Jew. And Mra ultra sans me Jew for Agasano, Omo synagogue, no, de Adiago muti, in Bermano ye. And I'm say, even a cover bring po as you feet, Jew Israel for one, Omo Pomaso more, I be on the Cato mutis, and Berma cry, say, and no Berma my more spiritual, but. That's just by the way. So Apostle Paul is not telling that Christian men shouldn't put on head covering when they are going to church. But it's just saying that in the culture of the Corinthian people, as they were Greeks, for a man to put on head covering is trying to show himself as a woman. And it's a dishonor. That's what he's trying to say. Verse 5. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head, for that is even all one as if she were shaven. implying that, however, you see, he has spoken about the Christian men. However, for the Christian women attending church meeting at Corinth without their head covered was immodesty, as if to show her insubordination. You know, the head covering is a picture of a woman's subordination to man. So that, well, some may say, well, for the Church of Jesus Christ, we can just go there and do, with any dressing. So probably some of the women will put away their head covering when they get to church. I'm sure you know how some even have the idea that, well, in the church, there's no male and female, so women can be pastors in the church. You see, some of these ideas can be, which may lead to this kind of behavior, so that maybe a woman will come to the public worship, and then when she comes there, because they're in the Christian community, well, she may think, well, this custom doesn't really apply, so she throws away the head cover. But Paul said, no, it's a dishonor, because it's like throwing away your subordination to as the condition which God has placed the woman, so that it dishonors the Lord. Because again, when a man as a Christian dresses like a woman, it's a dishonor to the Lord. He's not showing himself as a decent person. And again, when the woman also dresses in a way to put off her state as the one who ought to show subordination, it shows her disregard to modesty, and it dishonors the Lord. Ebion Apostle Paul had the option to say, so Babia obeko eshia baby Christopher eshia na obeyi neti ade egu neti nkataso no oye ogu niti anymore say, and a just ogu erade ogu ni hufi as also a Christoni. You know, make us said etiese sebema efasa etikata so na so person o cheso yo basa na etikata so current na tre semismo oba na oba ho brase and so oba etutwene a na so oba so as if say o oba asori de oba ho brase no eni ho, so eye ade aye enimguase so de ma oba no nyame anim. So na Apostle Paul e ka ho asem also for that is even all one as if she was shaven. Or set to say so oba ngata ni tisu no oba ehia de me say obi a ya bo ni ti ya twetwe ni timi kura every so. And what he's saying is meaning that if the woman comes uncovered, it's shameful as if she's shaving. As an enemy said, so oba ya twetwe, and at Corinth again, a woman to shave her hair is most shameful, and she's putting the same putting off the veil, a woman putting off the veil almost the same as if she is what? Shaving, which is also shameful. So meaning that if she will not shave her hair, which is the most shameful thing, then she should not put off her veil, which is also shameful for her. See, that's what she's trying to say. Oba actually the three infinity so I am guasema or current. No sounds na. So opa three so na so oba is shared anymore. Sorry, Asia Breno, I say my obi wa trying to TF so. We trying 3 minutes so. And also I say Mguasia and then Mguasia no. They say obi wa try 21 pepe. So it's that just like saying this as an argument why the woman shouldn't do that, because it is honors the Lord, and also it's a shameful thing even to her. Verse 6. For if the woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered. So still, building up the argument that the woman ought not to put off her veil when she comes to the church, so that if she will not cover, then let her shave her hair, which is the most shameful thing that they will not do. So Obana can turn it through, so then on church 23 and so the 3 minutes. No, him say, so by church 23, I had any guase party on ye. But and said that since but if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered. Said the enemy guase more ba say or by church 22 and the Okanta ni three so ba anymore. So it's to uncover the hair in public was a shameful deportment for women. So then she said, if it's a shameful thing, then let her be covered. Then let the Christian woman put on that which show her subordination when she joins in the public worship. So still talking about the need for women to cover up their hair when they appear in public to worship as Christians at Corinth. Verse 7, for a man indeed ought not to have his head veiled, for as much as he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of the man. Still giving argument why the woman have to appear in a state of subordination, because the veiling portrays the condition of a woman as subordinate to the man. So, and that is the position God has placed woman in order of his creation between man and woman. Sadie, I think at a swan, Corinth, extremely small, oba, also onyaho brassier, edema bema, na saa adeɛ no ɛkyerɛ Nyankopɔn mesmo tena bi ɔde ɔbaa gyina ɛwɔ na abɔde mesmo ɔbɔ ɔbɛma ne ɔbaa no ɛnti ɔsɛ ɔbaa ɔkata ne tirim so na ɛtumi kyerɛ saa ne gyinabea ɛwɔ Nyame anim ɛwɔ ne bɛma. So for a man indeed ought not to cover his head, veil his head, but ɛnsɛ sɛ ɔbaa no bɛma deɛ ɔkata ne tirim so. If you say Onyankopon ne ni onyam and also Onyankopon ne saso. Well, he said for as much he's the image of the glory of God. And this argument here, as I said, is a further thing that which he says that drawing from the fact that the man is the image and glory of God. Ideally, this expression relates both to the man and the woman. In Genesis, we are told God made man female. God made man in his own image, which relates both to the man and woman, as they have rational souls, and also which refers to their original uprightness, which they were made without sin, and having that character, which depicts God's own character. But this expression here doesn't apply. That doesn't imply that original state which God created man, where both man and woman have the same image, as picture the image of God, as the uprightness as well as their rational souls. It has to do with the aspect of authority. The man being the image and glory of God has to do with the aspect of authority which God bestowed on the man alone. And this aspect of authority shows God's sovereign power. Ahana Apostle Paul can say, "Bemane Yankopon ni saso ani ne onyam no." Because ye ko Genesis a ne kura ni bemane oba nyia gina ho e ma Yankopon ne onyam omo ye ne saso. If you say Yankopon bo nipa so krati asefo no sanso ma omo trene ya na ekyere mesima ono ati eye ne ati se ne mfoni a ewo omumu. But the Apostle Paul can say, "Bemane ye Yankopon ni hweso ene ne onyam no eya opa eyade a efa tumi Yankopon de ma bema no." And that aspect and sa tumi no there eyade a ode ma bema ne pe na extra Yankopon ni tumi a eso. The aspect where man has authority it shows God's sovereign power, and it was given to the man alone, so that in that aspect, that's why the man is the head of the woman, showing that he is the first in the creation of man. Is the first, because he will give the verse 8 and 9 to show why it is so. Why it is so. So the sense where man is the image and glory of man, glory of God, has to do with authority, his authority, so that he need not to cover his head. Kind of deportment which pictures subordination, which was for women to appear so at Corinth. The man don't know. The Christian men in Corinth don't have to appear in such condition, which depict them as probably women, a state of subordination. And to the Apostle Paul, all can say, "Bemane ye Nyankopon ne hweso anase ne onyam no eye jinabia ode ma bemane so ono ye odi owotumi e wo ba ne so no." And na kyerɛ sɛ tumi ode ma bema no ɛkyɛ Nyankopɔn no ani tumi a ɔwɔ nyoma nyia so, that he is the head like Christ, the head of the human race and everything. So it pictures that ɛno na saa ntiaseɛ we na saa asɛm we ɛkyerɛ ɛwɔ ha. say bema no Yankopon ni onyam no sanso ye ne hweso no tumidi a ekura no kire Yankopon so ne tumidi a ewo tumi nyia so. Verse 8 and 9 obekire odbe ya dia so de kire mu said your can say bema no Yankopon ni onyam no sanso ye ne hweso no. Verse 8 and 9, for the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. And that was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. So why did God create woman? In the account, it was after creation of man. And out of man, God created the woman, and to come and be helpmate for the man. So the man was created first, and then the woman. And the man was not created for the woman, but the woman for the man. In other verses, say that both are for each other, but here in matters of authority, it's the man was first created, and out of him the woman was created, so that authority was given to man as the head of the human race. Remember, the fall, it was through Eve, and then Adam also came to sin. But then the fall is placed on Adam. If you read the New Testament, Adam sinned, all creation sinned. It is not said Eve sinned and all creation sinned. God, he was the head. He's the head of the human race. So that the glory, the authority was given to him, so that when the woman, through the woman, he also sinned. It is not said that the woman sinned, so that all have sinned. But we say Adam, through the sin of Adam, we've inherited the sin of Adam, the first man. So that's the sense which Apostle Paul is trying to bring into our mind here. So that's the reason that the woman ought to cover her head, to show her subordination to the man. Again, referring to Corinth and their culture, where head covering was a sign of subordination of women to men. The American Apostle Paul, the outcome had no. It says, "Mesma, yosi bema no na eye Nyankopon ni onyam na hanso ye ne hweso no sa ade a kire tumidi ode ma bema sa tumidi no eno ho asudie ni se even oba na oba no sukoma Adam ye bo Eve suma Adam ye bo no Bible e kan o say Adam born intina bonya be wi so anka say Eve born. If you say Adam or no oyetre nipa abodi nipa Yakopon boy ono no oyetre nti bibia be kwachi obi agina no so bibia nso ko ye agina so as obi odi domo ano se nipa ku no odi omano no o me bibia so no aye yanka sa bia ono nka ho bi because ono na odi omano so tumidie na ekura no ho asudie no. So that is the picture we have here, so that the man has to appear in that condition where it depicts him as the head of the woman and not the other way around. Verse 10, for this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. This verse is very difficult. Many Bible expositors, they don't agree on this, and because you don't see how to connect it with whatever is being said. But what we can say of this is that Apostle Paul was talking about, the passage is dealing with about decency in public worship. And also, we know angels are ministering spirits, God's the good angels, and he sent them to minister to the saints, the believers, and definitely they are present with us when we worship. You see, when believers gather, invisibly they are present with us. So we may say that what Apostle Paul is saying is in connection that he's exhorting the Christian women to be careful not to appear in an immodest manner in the church because the angels are there. This is how we may try to understand, because the verse itself is a difficult verse. For this cause, ought the women, because the whole thing is about the public worship and decency which the women have to appear. I mean, to enforce it, angels are watching. That's what he's saying. And it's because angels are present with us when we come and appear before the Lord. As we are told, they are the ministering spirits which God sent, whom God sent to come and even protect his people. So when we meet as a public, that's why one of the things that we don't joke with the public worship, you see. Where two or three have got the Lord, the Holy Spirit Himself is with us. The angels are creatures, but the Holy Spirit Himself is with us to watch our orderliness, and we may hear have to order modesty, how we appear before in our worship, so that the Lord is concerned with how we come before Him, how we conduct ourselves in worship. If we are sincere and serious, He sees it. The angels are also watching. You see, because God, the wisdom of God manifested in His church, the angels were not even aware. You see, the angels themselves didn't know how God was going to bring the plan of salvation, where out of which His church will be built up, even in this corrupt and sinful world. But so the angels are watching to see our orderliness, and they are watching to see how we are not just appearing in a way which dishonors the Lord. So we may derive this application from what Apostle Paul says here. The verse, as I said, is a difficult verse. For this cause, ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. Apostle Paul says, "Sainti na ose oba eba also otuminya tumi woni tiri so." If we say above for it, na because sa as Apostle can nin chiremu eden pa, but you be fan say in someone or church mu no efa mesi ma yehyiemu awa Christopher hyiemu wa sorry a na se yesum awurade a edwom mai tene ene de eso nani ne ebeye no ye be fan say abofo nso Yankopɔn ne asomafo osoma omoma omudi ne dwuma ma no ma asɔre no ana ne mba nje mfa no say yehyiemu a abofo no nso ba bi yehu omo de pato mo ha na omo hwɛ mesi ma ye nneoma said the fata we ride anim and say until I saw the year ngina so a kyerɛ sɛ mba no sɛ omo ehwɛ ahwɛ ye sɛ omo bɛba ahyia ebre no ahofama mu a ɛsɔ ani. That's because some have really derived so many mysterious ideas about it, but we don't need to. It just has to do with the public meeting and that women appearing in a manner which ought to be decent. Well, to come to an end, we just look at this. We know that as we said, the veil was a sign of subordination for women at Corinth, and it depicted their femininity and modesty, so that it shows that women veiling at Corinth was not merely a fashion. You know, today people may walk around putting some veil upon their head, and well, you know, African women, they have this head covering they put on to show where it is in connection with the same. Even it's in connection with women showing that they are women by putting on those covering. And you know, even when a man put on what women put on, he's seen as almost like want to appear like a woman. But then veiling was had this moral significance at Corinth, and it shows the subordination of the woman to man. And so that, as Apostle Paul said, for a woman to appear in public unveiled and as a Christian, it was a shameful thing, because it's like she's throwing away standard of morality, and that she doesn't want to appear as one who respects that condition of women. And again, you ask, why should a Christian woman disregard a mark of her subordination by coming to the meeting with uncovered hair? Well, even those who are not godly people observe that distinction. Why should a Christian woman come to the meeting throwing away that the distinction of submission, distinction of femininity, which really God has in His creation order put there for women, and which this veil covering pictures at Corinth? And we know that Christian liberty don't give license for any other men or women, Christians, to really throw away morality or that which depicts the dignity of the woman or the man. So it's something Apostle Paul is trying to reminding the women at Corinth that no, they should not throw away that distinction which they are putting on the veil, shows that they are subordinate to men. The Apostle Paul all can say the baby and the person can say Apostle Paul no to man for say ma omuntu said Corinth, mba ahofama omo fam ekire se omo ye mba a kire se omo gyina bia no omo ye omo a omo hye tumi ase se bia oba aware a na se oba asori fie no a hye tumi ase mo omo ense omo to saa esu no atotwe fi se omo kura enni asori mu no omo fa saa ahofama no ekire se omo wo tumi dia ase aso omo hyebe o hye bia warefo hyebe ma ase na eba ne se na oba or Christo ni die oba asori dem dia opeso to side into go. So that was the thing Apostle Paul is trying to bring to our mind. But I know many of us are aware that some understand this passage that Apostle Paul was saying that no, women have to put on veil when they come to church. It has been, historically, many churches women have to put on veil when they come to church. Some have put on caps. They have all sorts of things. A woman have to cover her hair when she comes to the worship. But as we know, if we look at the context, Apostle Paul was not instructing women to put on, all women, Christian women, to put on head covering when they come to church, because he was not prescribing dress code for Christian women. I'll quote some few verses which describe the dress code for women. He is not describing dress code for Christian women, but he was addressing matters of modesty and decency, which in the culture of the Corinthians or the Greek world, women putting on the veil shows her as one who is under authority, and putting off the veil is a sign of kind of insubordination, a kind of pride and boastfulness. So this is what he's trying to bring into the mind of the Corinthian people and for us also as Christians. And that decency and modesty ought to be maintained in public worship. You see, in the Church of Jesus Christ, decency and modesty applies. So the Apostle Paul was not just telling, women to put on veil when they appear, Christian women to put on veil when they appear in public worship. And we know that there are general instructions about women dressing. Let me just go to 1 Timothy 2:9. Here Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy, in like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly array. So here the general instruction is that women adorn themselves in modest apparel. At Corinth, it was modest for women to veil their hair when they go to public places. You see, so that was. Please let's turn to First Peter. We have another one also there. You see that it's in connection. That women, Christian wives, are instructed to let their dressing reflect their subordination to their husbands. First Peter chapter 3, verse 1-6. Here it says, likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wife. In matters of subjection, you see how he will bring dressing. While they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, whose adorning, dressing, let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting the hair and wearing of gold or putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart in that which is not corrupt, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God great price. So the dressing should be that which show the woman as meek and quiet, one with that gracious heart, one which is humble and meek, which pictures the Christian. Verse 5, for after this manner in old time, the holy women also who trusted in God adorned themselves. See, modesty, and that way depicts the woman as, especially the wife, the Christian wife, as the one who shows in public she's under authority, being in subjection unto their own husband. So the dressing showed the Christian woman should dress to depict her subjection, the wife to the husband, so that when she appears in public, her dressing should honor the Lord and also show that she is in subjection to her husband. And he cites example, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as you do well and are not afraid, likewise with any amazement. So you see that how Apostle Paul connects subordination of the woman to the dressing. You see, so this is the general instruction for women, not to just put up a dressing as a show or to adorn themselves, with vanities, but then their dressing should show that they are submissive. You see, with a humble spirit. So you see how here Apostle Paul's instruction on modesty applies to all of us. Here, even both men and women, men also. You say that we don't, we live in times where cross-dressing is very common. Women trying to appear like men, and men also trying to appear like women on the street everywhere. And dresses that exposes the body shapes are not frowned upon. It's a common, it's something people praise. On the street and everywhere. But not a Christian ought to honor the Lord with his or her body. So that my dressing should be a covering. It should show that I am somebody who respects the Lord. And if I am a man, respect God's order of creation where he has placed me to dress properly. And if I'm a woman, to show that I am a woman indeed. A married woman, a woman under authority. I am not of my own self. So it must, our dressing should honor the Lord in these matters. So that it matters how we appear in public and at church. Our dressing should tell about us. See, our dressing should tell about us. And I'm sure, these days, even some pastors are not ashamed to even lead churches with tattered jeans, dressed like pop stars, and this so-called worship in churches. See, some of they dress like artists. What honor does it make for the Lord, you see? And as if decency, God doesn't matter of decency. So Apostle Paul is talking about, modesty, decency in dressing. And you see, so that it also speaks to married Christians, women. Some women, they want to put a dress. If their husbands want to even advise, they don't care. So long as the fashion of the day, they want to put it on. No. You see, if you are a Christian wife, you ought to, as the Bible says, your dressing ought to depict your submission, meekness. Is something which have to depict that you respect the Lord and his order for you and the family. So these are the matters that Apostle Paul was trying to bring to our mind. For the general instruction of dressing is modesty, that which honor the Lord. But for the head covering, it wasn't something he was bringing to as a standard for women all over the world. Because not everywhere that people see head covering as matter of modesty. There are other ways which depict women as which show their subordination to men, and that wherever we are, we uphold the principle of modesty. We uphold the principles of the headship of man and the subordination of the woman. May the Lord help us as we think about these things. In closing, shall we turn to hymn number 467, hymn 467. O thou who camest from above the pure celestial fire to impart,